I try and make films which millions can see. You may call it popular cinema, call it any kind of a cinema. And through my cinema, if I can give them something to think about, to sing about, to laugh about, I think I have done my work.
The 23rd Pune International Film Festival welcomes you to celebrate The Showman.
Good afternoon. I'm very happy to introduce a great filmmaker from India, also from the West Bengal, Calcutta. He was the chairperson of last year's Pune International Film Festival. Mr. Goutam Ghose, give a big hand to him. And Swapan Mullick, a critic from Bengal, very hard critic. People get scared of him. Whenever he wrote in the Statesman, and he was with Statesman for 30 years, and then attended many festivals all the world. Gautam's film Parikrama has been shown, and we also have discussion on that, and asking questions. You have seen the film? He has seen the film. So we'll discuss also Parikrama. Well, but our topic main is Tapan Babu, Tapan Sinha. Actually, I was in Calcutta.
How we are carrying the legacy.
Yeah. Actually, I was in Calcutta. So, this is being the centenary of Tapan Sinha. I discussed with Goutam in Calcutta and also with Swapan. They would like to have definitely a discussion on Tapan Sinha. You know, you are young people, and I don't think Tapan Babu came anyway across you. But yesterday, Boman Irani told you, unless you know the traditions, you know the old masters, you don't come to know cinema. Another relation today, Gautam da, I feel that both Raj Kapoor and Tapan Babu were in the mainstream. Like you, Satyajit, Munalda, he was not into the, what do you call, parallel cinema. Much later. Anyhow, but he was with different subjects. I tell you the way Tapan Babu has made films, you will, and end of the whole discussion, will be shocked to know what Gautam and Swapan will tell you that. A great filmmaker. And they were telling me that Mr. Satyajit and Tapan Babu were great friends. They would tell each other the stories. And as you said, even he started the film before Pachor Panchali. So there are so many things you're going to be today. Yeah. So now, not taking time, I just give the mic to them. Please, yeah.
Okay, actually, thank you very much for coming in this session. Well, Swapan Mullick, I'm sure, is an expert on Tapan Sinha's film. But being a filmmaker, I will tell you something about this great filmmaker. And as Dr. Patel said, that new filmmakers should learn from the tradition, the entire evolution of cinema, because cinema is a product of technology. The medium cinema, why I say product, basically it was created by technology. And that is why it had its own dichotomy of continuous changing. Silent cinema to sound film, black and white to color, analog to digital, and so on. Now AI, you are watching film on your cell phone. Tapan Babu belonged, so it's very important to know this evolution. And also, sometimes somebody asked me, you made a new film in which language? The censor people. Sir, we don't have any precedent. I said, I made this film in a cinematic language, but spoken words are in Italian, Hindi, and English. What's wrong? Oh, no, we don't have anything, in our rules that you have to mention one language. I said to him, he's a very nice guy, intelligent. I said to him, the next film, I'm sure I'm going to do a silent film. Silent movie. No question of language, nothing at all. So it is very important to learn this process. Tapan Sinha belonged to celluloid days. Absolutely. He made his first film in 1954, 2 years before Pather Panchali, and his last feature film in 2000, besides some television films and few documentaries. Tapanda once told me, because when he made television films, TV films, or maybe one serial, I guess. Serial at Kurashilo. Huh? Serial, I guess. I said, Tapanda, how you're feeling? He said, I'm feeling very bad. Oh my God, terrible images. Because in those days, low-band images were, now of course digital has improved a lot. It is terrible. And I don't know how people direct films through a monitor. It's true. Most of the filmmakers, barring few of course, they direct the film watching in the monitor. Me, because I shoot my film, but sometimes when my son was shooting, I never go to the monitor because the image, what you see, it's not the real image. It's in the monitor. And also, to instruct the actors, this eye contact is very important. You must be there. The director must be there beside the camera to instruct the actors. Tapan Babu belonged to that age. We are carrying the legacy, that's why I said. And he made 40 feature films. And in my opinion, the spectrum of his films, the subjects, are unmatched. I don't know any other filmmakers, at least I don't know, in India who could make films of so many kinds. All kinds. You name any genre, Tapan Babu made a film. Anything. Because Tapan Babu had written, and also when I discussed, he said, look, I was inspired by William Wyler and John Ford. Look at William Wyler, making a film from biblical reference, taking from Bible, then making a film like Roman Holiday, a love story, then immediately a musical. So even, so is John Ford. So Tapanda said right from the beginning, that was my thought, that I'll keep on changing subject. And he did it, right from the beginning. Because, he made one film, Kalamati, about a black stone or black soil, about the coal workers. In those days, it was unbelievable for any Indian filmmakers to go to the coal belt and made a film about the characters of that coal belt of Bengal. So, and immediately next he shifted to another film, maybe a full comedy. Next, he made a fantastic musical, like that. All his life, throughout his career, he went on making films on various subjects, including children films. I think 3 children films he made. Yeah? About 3-4 children films. Just films for children. Now you don't find children film. The children are not children. So what used to be a so real children film, like Ray made, Tapanda made many films for children. Safed Hathi, yeah. And he made films mostly in Bengali language, and also there are a couple of 7-8 films in Hindi. maybe Swapan will enlighten you about that. In Hindi, and one film, Sagina Mahato, was a double version film. Actually, he made the film in Bengali first, then the Hindi version, which, in my opinion, no match to near the Bengali one. Because, for the Hindi, he had to introduce some extra songs, some dramatic sequence, which was not there in the Bengali version. And he never claimed that I make good films. He was he was very educated person, learned about cinema technique, very much. He knew cinema technique. He was himself a sound recordist, sound engineer. He knew every department. A brilliant composer. I'll come later. When we again, I come back after Chopin. Brilliant composer, yet to be discovered. I think people should do more research on his music alone, his songs, his lyrics, composition, background music. I've been watching during the centenary of our Calcutta Festival. I've been watching his films again and again, and I found so many things so fascinating in those days. Technology was, limited, and it was again a celluloid days, but really he did miracle. It was sometimes some people say it's a middle road filmmaker. These terms are created by not Chopin, but mostly by the journalist. Middle order film, totally commercial film, art film. Tapan Sinha made a film of taste, of his own taste. He was a learned man, very literary, educated person. So he made films, and his films were big success. Most of his films are real success. So he was very excited, and he couldn't stop. That's why he had to make, every year he had to make films. Because there's a huge demand from the producer, please come, Tapan Babu, come and make another film. Because Bengali audience, he loved his audience. That's the most important thing. He never cared for film festivals. Of course, his film went to film festival, he won award, but never really cared for film festival. His aim was to show film to his own audience. Over to Chopin.
Thank you, Goutam. Well, you have given a very good introduction to Tapan Babu. But first I want to congratulate Dr. Jabbar Patel for organizing this focus and remembering him, because this is something that should have happened long ago. It should have happened long ago, because Tapan Babu was someone who really needed really good research and good study. Because during all the years, and this is something that was a reality, that during all the years that he lived and worked, to some extent, I mean, he was supposedly overshadowed by the towering presence of Satyajit Ray and Mrinal Sen, and to some extent Hrithik Ghatak. Because most serious critics and enlightened people, they were obsessed with these three stalwarts. I mean, they talked about him whenever there were festivals and awards and film societies. And yeah, but Tapan Sinha was never bracketed with these three, was never bracketed with these three stalwarts, which is very surprising, very, very surprising. Because as Goutam said very rightly, that he was not just prolific, he made something like 40 films in almost as many working years. I mean, it's something that is quite incredible. But he had firmly established himself as one of the best storytellers that not only Bengal, but also the entire country ever saw. And he had, as he's very rightly said, there was a diverse repertoire. I mean, you cannot imagine the kind of diversity that he handled, which is why several of his films were adapted in Hindi, and they by well-known producers and directors, and he himself made some of his own adaptations, but many of his films were adapted by directors like Gulzar, and Mere Apne was made by Gulzar, and Rishikesh Mukherjee made Bawarchi from Golpo Holo Shotti. What actually Tapan Babu really believed in was not, as I said, he never claimed to be a good filmmaker, but what he really claimed to be was someone who offered good, honest, and good entertainment. But entertainment with a strong undercurrent of social concern. And that kind of social concern was not kind of very experimental or, something that is very remote, but something that actually resonated with the masses. And he established his credentials on the mainstream circuit as a director. And it is true that, that here in Bengal particularly, even when he started working, there were big stars like Uttam Kumar and Suchitra Sen and Madhavi Mukherjee and Soumitra Chatterjee and all that. But whenever a Tapan Sinha film reached the screen, it was not an Uttam Kumar film. Yes. It was a Tapan Sinha. It was a Tapan Sinha film. It was a Tapan Sinha film. He put his signature on the film regardless of the cast. And that is what distinguished him. And this is something that became a bonanza for producers, and he occupied the unique position of producers chasing him. He never had to chase producers. He never had to chase producers. I mean, he in his entire career, I think he had very, very few flops. And that is something that distinguished him. But somewhat paradoxically, this kind of popular appeal or this appeal to the masses seemed to go against him, because serious critics or even some enlightened sections of the audience did not actually consider him to be cerebrally inclined enough, and perhaps not as left-leaning as they would probably want. That is something that he was considered to be a very rightist in his convictions, and that sort of thing. But
in one of his writings, it's written very interestingly that when you grew up, your everything is towards left. But finally, when you aged, it comes to you. It comes not to right, but it becomes straight. So he said that I believe in individual protest,
Absolutely.
not collective protest. Sometimes collective protest might be misguided.
Absolutely. Very good. That's a very good point. And so this is something that he was probably considered, but also the film society leaders and the films. He was never, to that extent, associated with film societies in that way. And but that was very very surprising, because they ignored not only the fact that he was a good and honest storyteller, but he was an excellent craftsman. And this craftsmanship is something that he acquired not here, but at the Pinewood Studios in London. At that time he was working in new theatres in the sound department, and he got an invitation to go to Pinewood to learn the to learn the art of filmmaking. And he grabbed the opportunity to go to London. And he stayed on, not only to learn the art of filmmaking, but also to see a whole lot of films that Satyajit Ray had seen a little. That was when he went, it was around 1950. Satyajit Ray had gone to London a little earlier, and had seen all these European films. So Tapan Babu saw not only those European films by Di Sica like Bicycle Thieves and David Lean's Brief Encounter, but he thrived, as Goutam said, on a very healthy diet of Frank Capra, William Wyler, and John Ford, and that sort of thing. And so this attachment to good stories, developed from this thing. And this attachment to good stories, that is something that he actually shared with Satyajit Ray. While critics had actually underrated him, the fact is that he had a special bonding with Ray. He really had a special bonding with Ray. And as we know, as we have heard, that even during the early days, Ray had actually shown Tapan Babu the script of Pather Panchali. Had shown him the script of Pather Panchali. And much later, when Ray was making this film called Nayak, which was based on a hero and the film industry, he of course, he knew the overall situation, but he wanted the minute details, the nitty-gritty of what was happening in Bengal and in the industry. And the person he went to was Tapan Sinha. And so this is kind of interaction. It continued. Whenever either of them came out with a new film, they took the other's opinion, which is something that happens very rarely within the film industry. Actually, we also know that Satyajit Ray, Manikda, he was so highly impressed with a telefilm that Tapan Babu made. It was a film called Admi Aur Aurat. And it was a telefilm, you see. But he did not it was a telefilm just like Sadgati was a telefilm. And he was so impressed by the craftsmanship and the taut structure and the performance of Aman Palekar and that girl Mayur Raichaudhuri, that he actually recommended this film to BBC's Channel 4. See, this is something that very rarely happens between filmmakers, the kind of bonding that they showed. And Admi Aur Aurat was actually won the best feature film in the National Award in 1985. And it was one of a string of awards. And not only did he win the National Award, Kabuliwala was one of the earliest Indian films to win the Silver Bear in Berlin.
That's for music.
Yes, whatever it is. Whatever. But the Berlin Award is something that probably the first one. So this is something that even the critics don't. It's very surprising that.
And also, it won the President's Gold Medal.
President's Gold Medal, of course, it won. It won the President's Gold Medal. It won this music award in Berlin, and it was something that's something quite incredible. Just now, one of the things that Tapan Babu took away from his European exposure during the time that he was in London, was this tendency to pick up common people, average people, probably improbable protagonists. Most of his protagonists were very improbable. They could never become protagonists otherwise. Take, for example, this Kabuliwala, a traveling Afghan fruit seller who develops this bittersweet relationship with, with this young girl, and and there are tensions within the family. I mean, this is something that's something that no one would have probably thought about. It was a Tagore short story, but he picked up that the Afghan Kabliwala could become the protagonist.
I would like to add something
Yeah.
about Kabuliwala.
Yeah.
Tapanda wrote that because before Kabuliwala, most of the films based on Tagore stories were big flop. So producers said, why, Tapan Babu, you're taking story from Tagore? And Tapan Babu proved
Yes.
that it became
Yes.
a super hit.
It was not only a super hit in Bengal, it was a super hit all over India. And you might be interested to know that it ran in morning shows for 6 weeks here in Pune. Here in Pune. So, I mean, this is something that, we come to know when we keep talking about Tapan Babu, we research his works. For example,
And Tapan Sinha wrote in his biography, the technical quality of Kabliwala was horrible.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
made it such a
He
bad film.
acknowledged that technically it was weak, but his treatment otherwise was so fascinating, and that, I mean, it was a super hit wherever it went. I mean, and actors, Chobi Biswas, and we've had Kabuliwala afterwards. Even very recently, someone tried to do, but no one came anywhere near Chobi Biswas. Now these, no one tried. No one would come anywhere near. So these Balraj Sahni. So these common people lift. These common characters, common protagonists lifted to extraordinary heights. This is what happened in Tapan Babu's hands. For example, say the young adolescent who was stung by wanderlust in this film called Atithi. Young fellow, 15, 16 years old, stung by wanderlust. I mean, he becomes the protagonist. The old gardener in Bancharamer Bagan, whose plot is about to be captured by this zamindar. And, for example, the factory leader, in Sagina Mahato. Who would imagine the factory leader would become the protagonist? There was a film called Lohu Kapat, where the protagonist was a prisoner, and who was forced into that situation by circumstances which were beyond his control. For example, the domestic help in Golpo Holu Shotti. What he did to Golpo Holu Shotti. Babuchi was made by Rishida made by, and he lifted that to extraordinary heights. He made another film called Nirjon Shoikote, where he was dealing with 5 elderly widows. And one, young widow, and they get together for a holiday in Puri where they meet a young writer, and this interaction, and widows in that social situation, they are normally in a corner, they are social outcasts. But here in Puri, in the company of this young writer, they discovered a totally different dimension to themselves. What a film that was. See, all these characters.
I'm just giving you little informations. And in the 3rd International Film Festival of India, Nirjan Shoikote, I think it's a record in the history of cinema. All 5 actors got the Best Actress award.
Great. No, it was
All of them, 5 widows.
Yes.
Elderly to Sharmila.
All elderly.
They together, jointly, they received the Best Actress award.
And you see, the 5 widows, apart from Sharmila, who was by that time she had become a star. All the others were just simple actors and actresses in Bengali films. And the characters themselves were very ordinary, but lifted to that kind of height. So this is something that he could manage to put them in specific social contexts and give them a multi-layered kind of a treatment. It was so multi-layered that sometimes you think that it is well beyond its time. You know, it's like this film we know, everyone knows, called Khudi the Pashan. It is actually a ghost story. A ghost story about an Iranian woman who is captured and lands in the harem of a Badshah. But then it slips into a kind of magic realism. And we find a young tax collector moving through dark corridors. As the cinema itself, it becomes a kind of a celluloid epic. Whatever, the photography, this brilliant photography, the cinematic opulence is really very stunning as Soumitra Chatterjee moves through the dark corridors. And there is Thumri in the background that actually dissolves into Rabindra Sangeet. And as he moves slowly across the corridors, he sees this woman standing against a pillar. It's quite.
It's a very interesting film, he
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
And he used Ali Akbar Khan as the music director. But Tapan Babu had a tremendous sense of music. He didn't do it for earlier films. Later, from Otiti, as he mentioned, that was the first film he himself composed. But here, he had given suggestion to Ali Akbar Khan Shah that with Kaushiki Kanara, you combine this Tagore song. And Amir Khan Sahab rendered that song along with Pratima Banerjee. Pratima Banerjee. Unbelievable.
And the Thumri dissolves into that it dissolved into it so very naturally. So let's number one. Just show the clipping of number one so that we'll get some idea. It's a small video. Another film that was clearly, yeah.
What was the reception of the film with the common audience?
This one, Khudima, oh my God, huge. You were big success. Another film that was well ahead of its time was a film that very few filmmakers could probably think of as a very valid subject. It was a subject of broken relationships. It was a film called Jotu Griho. And it was produced by Uttam Kumar. And it is based on a short story where the couple meet at a railway station at the fag end of their broken relationship. But what Tapan Babu did was to enlarge the concept with two parallel images which were juxtaposed with the main idea. And it was meant to intensify the kind of psychological conflict in the relationship of this childless couple. The script is dotted with kind of broken images, and we at one point we find this and another couple constantly quarreling. And that couple belongs to the same social status, but they keep quarreling amongst themselves. They keep quarreling, but they will never drift apart, because that is the kind of situation that, I mean, it is depicted. That the couples keep quarreling, but in the case of the protagonists, it is kind of, it is Uttam Kumar Arundhati, it is kind of a subdued tension. The subdued tension juxtaposed with these outbursts of a quarreling couple. And this juxtaposition was something that was juxtaposed quite effortlessly. It was another juxtaposed with the image of the main heroes, a junior colleague who is reconciled, and he's from a very middle class existence, and he is quite reconciled to the simple joys of his lower middle class existence. And he is quite satisfied with what life has to offer. He's quite satisfied with it. And this is something that Uttam Kumar, the male hero, begins to envy. You know. So we'll show just two brief clippings, and the last one is quite stunning, and where you have the young couple who have met at the railway station. The last shot is of the couple sitting on different trains on different platforms, and the expression on their faces tells you everything. And the final shot shows you the woman just beginning to say that I only wish that I could give this relationship another chance. But before she could complete the sentence, the two trains just move in opposite directions. Oh, what a beautiful conclusion. So we will see these two small clippings.
আমার মেয়ে স্যার
মানি সব দিতে হবে আমার চোখের চেয়ে দেখা আমার কানের শোনা আমার হাতের নিপুণ সেবা আমার আনাগোনা সব দিতে হবে আমার যে সব দিতে হবে সে তো আমি জানি আমার যত বিত্ত প্রভু আমার যত বাণী সব দিতে হবে আমার প্রভাত আমার সন্ধ্যা হৃদয় পত্র পুঠে গোপন থেকে তোমার টানে উঠবে ফুটে এখন সে যে আমার বিনা হতেছে তার বাধা বাজবে যখন তোমার হবে তোমার সুরে সাধা সব দিতে হবে তোমারই আনন্দ আমার দুঃখে সুখে ভরে আমার করে নিয়ে তবে নাও যে তোমার করে তোমারই আনন্দ আমার দুঃখে সুখে আমার করে নিয়ে তবে নাও যে তোমার করে আমার বলে যা পেয়েছি শুভক্ষণে যাবে তোমার করে দেব তখন তারাই আমার হবে সব দিতে হবে
The house becomes a Jyotugriho, a highly inflammable house from which one must escape.
ভালো থেকো
আজ তোমাকে দেখে আবার
You could complete the sentence. Two trains move in opposite. Yeah, it's a top long shot where the two trains move in opposite direction, showing that there is actually something left even in a broken relationship. Relationships never break forever. There is always something left. Yeah. There's also another element that Tapan Babu made excellent use of. That is something called magic realism. Magic realism, and it was superbly adapted to his social objectives, and it had his magic realism also had a large dose of popular appeal. That's why there are two films we think of two films that did extremely well in spite of having this, this element of magic realism in them. One was Golpo Holu Shotti, where we see this, this domestic help. I mean, as a kind of a distant character emerging from the shadows and entering this family. And then there's this Bancharam in Bagan. In domestic help, he emerges from these shadows and he comes to change the entire climate in the joint family, which was almost, it was breaking up. And it was actually breaking up. And that was the kind of comment that Tapan Babu made, that joint family systems were actually, there were the cracks in the joint family system. I mean, we have this where he's trying to provide a healing touch, this domestic servant. But joint family systems were cracking, and even at that time. And he was talking of the dismantling of the joint family system even 60 years before the joint family system today is virtually non-existent. Is non-existent because of social pressures. There's no joint family system anymore, but he had the foresight. He was the kind of a visionary. He was talking of the cracks in the family system because of these social pressures. In Bancharamir Bagan, he is talking about this plot of land being grabbed by the zamindar. It was a devastating comment on the zamindari system. It was a devastating comment on the feudal system, but it was very deftly and very delightfully sugar-coated, with full of slapstick, pure slapstick. It was pure slapstick, and it made it into a kind of a box office. Both these films were box office triumphs, and not only were they box office triumphs, both these films produced two actors who became not only permanent fixtures in Bengali cinema, Robi Ghosh and Manoj Mitra. I mean, they were original. Both of them were original from the theatre. Both of them from the theatre. But and the kind of contribution they had made a lasting impact on Bengali cinema was absolutely quite incredible.
A little anecdote about this. Normally, in Bengal, Jyoti Basu was chief minister for 35 years or so, something like that. So people used to say Jyoti Babu never laughs or smiles or whatever. Always very serious. Tapanda said, Jyoti Babu wanted to watch this film. Then at Shishir Moncho, that was Calcutta Information Center, had some projector. So he invited Jyoti Basu, only Jyoti Basu and his family, to show him the film. Jyoti Babu went on laughing. And at the end of the film, he told Tapanda that, look, Tapan Babu, I never laughed. And, I'll tell you, because of this evening, I will acquire more strength to rule Bengal.
Quite incredible. And his handling of comedy, Tapan Babu's handling of comedy, was as incredible as his handling of very serious subjects like Jyoti Guru. And so you see the range. He was talking of the range, the diversity and the range. So let us watch the two videos of number three, Golpolo Shotti a little bit, and Bancharamir Bagan a little bit. Okay, so actually the story goes that, the story goes that he was being enticed with this 400 rupees every month, and he was about 700 every month, and he was well over 80. So he says, you just take this money and just relax. But you just sign this document which says that after you die, the garden will be ours. Garden will be ours. The story is that the gardener never seems to die. He keeps living and living. And whereas this zamindar is trying to entice him to die, but he never dies. So that is something that, the slapstick is all about. You see, there were three things that were in the cornerstone of Tapan Babu's cinematic inspiration. It was Tagore, it was literature, and it was life. But written into this cinematic inspiration was the strong element of humanism. He looked for the human elements even in very difficult situations. And we already talked about Nirjon Shoikote, but there's another film that is worth mentioning. It is a film called Khonike Rothithi. The Khonike Rothithi, it deals with the subdued relationship, the subdued and often silent.
This film was made just after
Kalamati, yes. Just contrast that. It was subdued and almost silent relationship that develops between a young doctor and the widowed mother of a polio-stricken child who comes to his chamber. And during the treatment, a kind of a very soft and tender relationship again develops between the doctor and the widowed mother. And Zindagi, it was something that was on, and it was based on, these films were based on very simple observations. Whenever he made these observations, he wrote his own scripts. And the idea of writing his own scripts was to actually enter into the soul of his characters. And it actually, in a film like Khonike Rothithi, he actually entered into the soul, where there were very few spoken words, but he entered into the soul of these two characters, the young doctor and this widowed mother of a polio-stricken child. Just number 4.
সবাই মিলে একসাথে চিৎকার করলে কাকে দেখবো? আপনার ইউনিয়ন বোর্ড ইলেকশন তো গিয়ে এলো। হ্যাঁ, প্রেসিডেন্ট আমি হব আমাদের মিলিটারি হসপিটালে। এবার তোমাকে আমি ইউনিয়ন বোর্ড থেকে তাড়াবো। আগে প্রেসিডেন্ট হও, তারপরে তাড়ি। স্টপ ছাইলে। ওরে মিলিটারি বেটার রত্না, দুদিন যুদ্ধ থেকে খুব কষ্ট যাচ্ছি। আমি তো ভাবতেও পারছি না।
ভীষণ স্বার্থপরের মতন তোমার কাছে চলে এলাম।
এবারে দাঁড়াও তো বাবু, আস্তে আস্তে।
একটা গল্প বলুন না।
আরে আমি কি গল্প জানি?
না, বলুন।
আচ্ছা বলছি শোনো। অনেক দিন আগে পাহাড় ঘেরা এক ছোট্ট দেশে এক ছোট্ট রাজকুমার থাকতো। চেষ্টা করো। আমি জানতাম তুমি হাঁটবে, তুমি দাঁড়াবে, তুমি খেলবে।
Okay. So actually, Tapan Babu really established himself to someone who, as Goutam said, was considered to in the middle of the road, although he never considered to be a middle roader at any point of time. But he was actually most concerned with the social concerns. That is what audiences could relate to. These social concerns were never very remote. They were something that audiences could always relate to. At the time when cineasts and critics and enlightened audiences, they were talking of the parallel and art films as opposed to mainstream. What Tapan Babu was actually doing was to blur the lines between these two. He was never blurring. So he was blurring the lines between art and commerce. And he was doing it about 50 years before people were started talking of parallel cinema and art cinema and that sort of thing. He had blurred the lines in his own kind of film. And this was something that, because he was looking for actually the human elements in very, very difficult situations. See, imagine two films that were made. One was called Aponjon and the other was Ekhoni. You see, these two films were made during the turbulent 60s. When Bengal was in the grip of labor problems. And factories were closing down one after the other. And there were political parties who were ascribing faults to this, that, and the other. And so it's something that is. On the other hand, there was these the Naxalite extremists who had gained the upper hand in the political scenario. And there was also this problem of the educated youth confronted with the curse of unemployment. You see, this had led them to gang wars. And but Tapan Babu, he went into the human elements that he felt were at the root of the problem of these young dropouts. He looked for the human elements. And he, with the character of Chaya Devi, and Chaya Devi, the young old lady who comes into contact with this young group, and she becomes a kind of sounding board for the compassionate eyes with which Tapan Babu looked at these dropouts. You see, these critics considered all this to be very simplistic. They consider all this to be very simplistic, and which is very, very unfortunate. And of course, the powers that be at that time did not consider, as we said earlier, did not consider it to be as left-leaning enough. But the point is, the value and validity of what Tapan Babu was saying 50, 60 years ago was something that we realize today when we are still grappling with the problem of the educated unemployed. We are still problem with that. So this is something that, Tapan Babu always saw far ahead. And that is what his films also spoke about. And much the same thing happened with Shagina Mahato. So it was set in the British Raj. It was set and it dealt with this factory leader who is confronted with tyranny. And we have two big stars, Dilip Kumar and Saira Banu, who is planted in a situation in Bengal with the dialect, with the local dialect, but so wonderfully humanized that the film became a roaring hit. It became a roaring hit. And the other film was a film called Harmonium. Harmonium, what a wonderful, again, a very original idea, where this musical instrument moves from one household to another. It moves from one household to another, and it becomes a kind of a metaphor for the unpredictabilities, the ups and downs of life. You see.
And those households are from different periods of time.
Different periods of time. So he was looking at time, he was looking at people, he was looking at society, all through the medium of a musical instrument, which is fantastic. And you see, with all the elements of cinema that he mastered so well, what we know that he mastered the art of music composition, which actually his music, his songs, I mean, they just flowed into his scripts. And the songs told you what the films were about. So let us end with two song sequences, number 5. Two song sequences. The first is from Harmonium, And the second is from... no, yeah. No, try it now. Arati Bhattacharya is a dance sequence. And there's the harmonium. Harmonium is one, and the second is this Sagina Mahato, where we have Dilip Kumar and Saira Banu in that song sequence. Yeah. No, Bangla one. We are talking of the Bangla first. The Bangla. Choti Si Panchi, which is the local dialect. And written by him. He wrote films in the local dialect also. So let us end with these two.
I tell you, unfortunately, his centenary year was over. Now, the most important work is to restore all his negatives. Most of his films' negatives has completely gone. Of course, AI, in the archive, they have started restoring some of the films, but I am sure that the quality, the tonal quality of his films will never come up unless it is restored properly from the camera negative. Camera negatives have gone, but now restoration has advanced a lot. Even from the print, they can really truly restore. But what you had seen, one company named Angel, they bought the rights of all his films, most of his films, the positive print right. So somehow, you know, they preserve these bad videos, but at least you can see the film. And if you study Tapan Sinha, you know, later, you will find some extraordinary cinematic moments in his film. He made a film called Hashuli Bake Rupo Kotha, based on a great novel by Tarashankar Bandyopadhyay. It's about the rural life, their conflict, tension, and it's so many things. It's a tapestry of rural Bengal. And the first shot, it's a long trolley shot. I don't know how much, how much length of trolley Bimal Babu, the cameraman, brought it to the location. Long trolley shot with many elements. It's not just only shot. It's about palki. Palki means on the shoulder ridden palanquin. And the palanquin, a palanquin is moving, going through the village. And many elements, you can see people were harvesting, you can see some other elements, and palanquins in going. Only one shot, single shot. And finally it enters near the Zamindar's house. Unbelievable. It was done many years ago before Weekend was made by Jean-Luc Godard. In Weekend also, you have a long trolley shot, you remember? With, of course, in the French context, with many other elements, those long trolley shot means keeping the space as it is, without cutting. So there is similar, in this film, in Sagina Mahato, there is an ecstatic sequence of Dilip Kumar, Sagina, running with the train. Out of ecstasy, out of joy. It's a brilliant cinematic moment. Anyway, I'm sure that today Pune Film Festival has initiated the interest on Tapan Sinha. I hope the young people will find and do research on this brilliant filmmaker. And I would say he was a genuine filmmaker without any pretension. And just one anecdote, and I'll complete this discussion. My personal anecdote about him. I made a film in 1988 named Antarjuli Yatra and the Hindi version Mahayatra, with many artists, including Shatrughan Sinha. But it was based on a very avant-garde story by Kamal Kumar Majumdar. Kamal Kumar Majumdar was considered the writer of the writers. Common readers, Kamal Kumar is very difficult. Based on that, I made a film. And when Manikda, Satyajit Ray came to know, Goutam, are you making a film on Kamal Babu's story? And he just trying. You have courage. The same film was shown at Nandan. It's a special screening. And all important filmmakers of their generation, Mrinal Sen, Satyajit Ray, Tapan Sinha, and many of them, music director Shalil Chaudhary, and all the important authors, literary people, because, it was based on Kamal Majumdar's film. So after the screening, Ray said, okay, I'll talk to him, talk to you, you come home sometime. Somebody said, brilliant film, someone said something like that. What happens, after a screening? Oh, very interesting. Interesting is the word, which has something. So, Tapananda came to me and in my ear said, Ekdin bari esho, please come home. I went to Tapanda's house and had a long discussion on the film. And he was so cute. Just imagine Tapan Sinha for us, he was an icon. A man, he was asking me questions about the continuity of those singers, how you maintained, about some light, lenses, perspective, all these things. I know, I was telling, and like a student, curious student, he was listening. I'll never forget that, I gathered that courage to explain Tapan Sinha about the mise-en-scene, how I placed the camera and everything. Okay, so it was unbelievable. Then the film was, objected by the censor board for certification. However, with the effort of Ray, Miralda, Tapan Sinha, finally the committee had passed the film. Okay. Now the release date was fixed. In a chain, it was a very good chain. In those days, because well, many of young people who don't know what is chain means, in a city, main 3 theaters and many other theaters in the suburbs. So in one chain, my producer, my distributor got the release date. And on the same day, Tapan Sinha's film, a Hindi film, Aaj Ka Robin Hood. Aaj Ka Robin Hood was also scheduled. What Tapanda did, he told the distributor, look, I've seen Antarjula Yatra, it's a very unique, unusual film. I have an audience, because, established. Tapan Babu had an audience. I have my audience, but I don't want to divide the audience for Goutam's film. Postpone my release at least for 4 to 5 weeks. Because of my film a young filmmaker's film was releasing. Can you imagine this greatness? It gives me goosebumps. Can we imagine this greatness nowadays? People, fight with each other. Tapan Sinha postponed his schedule because of my release. I'll never forget in my life.
No, but you see, the point about Tapan Babu was that anyone who came into contact with him was the first thing that they were struck was the humility of the man.
Fantastic.
The humility of the man was something quite extraordinary.
Genuine
quite extraordinary and genuine, humility.
Yeah.
I heard of one instance where, he used to write his own songs, his lyrics. He took his name away from the credits of the lyricists because those credits had the name of Rabindranath Tagore. He did not want his name bracketed with Tagore. You see, yeah. So he didn't want it. So this is the humility of the man.
Tagore's song was there, and also Tapan Sinha's.
He did not want. But he did not want his name in the credits. His name is not in the credits because he did not want to be bracketed with Tagore. This is the humility of the man. So apart from being a filmmaker, he was a good human being. That is something that is very, very important.
And another thing, Arundhati Devi, his wife, Arundhati's second husband was Tapan Sinha. She was so cultivated lady. She was from Shantiniketan, learned Tagore song from Tagore himself and Sholajaranjan Babu. And, she was an excellent singer and also made 4 films. All of them are really beautiful films. And she was absolutely besides Tapanda all the time. And I'm sure that Tapanda told me that when I compose, first I sort of ask Arundhati to listen to it. And if she approves, then I do it. And also she does lot of correction to my composition. Because it's a very interesting mind, a matching of mind. But the common factor was Tagore for both of them. Very, very wonderful relationship. And but before marriage, she much later. She's an actor. Many films. Very, very popular actress. Very cultivated person, very cultivated.
Loud in her expressions. Never.
No. After Tapan Sinha, Goutam Ghose is not really doesn't. You can see your reaction.
No, my reaction would be that this was the second time I saw the film yesterday. I was totally mesmerized by the real scope of the film and the minute details that, apart from the wide expanse, the visual expanse and everything, the minute details of the technical details were quite and most of the actors, they did so very well, and Gautam's handling of the actors. But what I was really really made me think as to how wonderfully sort of Gautam in this film balanced the story of the pilgrimage with the Narmada issue, which has been a long festering issue in Bengal and in India, and it has been going on for some time. It is still not been solved. But the point is that how he managed to balance and to merge the two things and to make it an organic appeal to the audience. That is something that really struck me as something that was resulted from the director's skill. And I think it was your script was doing it. Yeah. But the concept of balancing and to make this a parallel kind of an event is something that is really wonderful. I really liked the film the second time when I saw it.
Yeah, see, one thing that strikes us about the film is, my name is Shoibal Chatterjee. I'm a film critic based in Delhi. So basically what I feel is, Bengali cinema, when you're talking about the Trimurti of Satyajit Ray, Mrinal Sen and Hrithik Ghatak, they made films that were rooted in the land that they belong to, but they were universal because they used the language of cinema, and also it was a commentary on the world. Mrinal Sen was always sort of commenting on not just Bengal but also on the world. Satyajit Ray's style was very universal because it was, taken from different elements that he read and he saw, and of course Hrithik Ghatak was a political filmmaker, so he was also commenting on the state of the world and the state of the state of Bengal. So I think Bengali cinema over the last 20-25 years has regressed because we have become very insular, which is against our grain. Bengal has always been, whether it's Tagore or we've always been, international. Yeah. So Bengal has regressed. I think this film sort of is, again, in a sense, it takes us back to where Bengali cinema was at one time when it really dominated. International in its commenting on specific local situations, culturally specific situations, and connecting them with the globe.
It seems that the next new generation of filmmakers, they've exhausted all their ideas, because many of them are even borrowing their ideas even now from Ray and Tapan Sinha
worse is that
remakes of them.
They're borrowing from South Indian films.
Yes. So actually,
Bengali films,
it
commercial
seems
films.
as if they are sort of exhausted themselves. That is something
also
that is
Tapan
very
Sinha.
sad. That is very sad. But that was never the situation in Tapan Sinha's time. They never exhausted. They had an inexhaustible fund of ideas. Even in your time. Even after the generation after that. They were never in short of ideas. They never exhausted the ideas. That is something. And even filmmakers like Goutam Ghose, they always made films on wide range of subjects. It's something that it doesn't happen now. And they don't. And today's filmmakers, they don't even have that courage to go ahead and do handle these challenging subjects. It's something that is very sad, and it's very sad that is happening to Bengal. I don't know why it is happening.
No, it's not happening. It's happened. It's all it's not a work in progress. It's like already there, because we are now. See, look at Tapan Sinha, because when I was talking about Tapan Sinha, what was so special about him? Because look at the cross-pollination that happens. He borrows from literature. He borrows from other. If Jyotu Griho in a way is Brief Encounter, Jyotu Griho indirectly influenced Ijazat. And lots of films. All his films were made into Hindi. He also borrowed. So he was open to the entire world, which is what Bengali cinema was when it was really like, globally sort of celebrated. Last 30 years, I mean, we are so insular, we can't even go look beyond our own streets and our own neighborhoods. And Bengali films are all about the industry, the film industry, or the ad industry. So, so it's very insular. We are not looking at the world around us.
You must have heard today a very different era altogether. And then you are all young people. I think you're connected. I'm sure. Please raise the hand who did not connect. I think you're all connected. See, that's the whole magic of the filmmakers and critics of that period. But the language, what they're expressing, I think is a very modern, which these young people can understand. That's why today's the seminar and talk was very important, because they hardly know about Tapan Babu. But you have seen the Hindi versions like Bawarchi or Apanjan's, what is that? Mere Apne and all that. Many films were made from Tapan Babu's film. The Gulzar made, Rishida made. Zindagi Zindagi. Kaun sa?
Zindagi Zindagi.
Zindagi Zindagi. There are so many films coming from Tapan
Zindagi
Babu.
Zindagi from Khoni Ki Roti Thi.
Yeah. Now, Goutam.
Geet Gata Chal, yeah.
Oh, Geet Gata Chal. He's also Tapan Babu's film.
Otithi.
Oh, Otithi. Yeah. Otithi.
Take our story, yeah.
Yeah. So this is how today in Pune International Film Festival we're trying to connect this thing. But Gautam, now, because you also worked in the new digital world, now this problem of like what Swapan is saying, that finding a story, so it's become a kind of a challenge because of OTT and all that. Now I don't know what's happening in Bengal, but here in Marathi cinema, we are been absolutely shadowed back with the Hindi cinema, which is a very big one. Hindi cinema today is fighting with the South Indian cinema, which is larger than life. And you will find the Hindi cinema itself is changing. And everything you find in Hindi cinema is hyper. I mean, yahan se yahan jana hai, they will jump. And people accept. I mean, now what do you feel? What is this phase as a filmmaker?
Well, in a country like ours, it's not homogeneous at all. Say, I give you an example of Sweden. In Sweden, why Bergman sort of had flourished with such rich ideas? Because Swedish audience were prepared to accept that kind of film, and also the education level. Here, it's very difficult. You have to cater so many kinds of audience. But in my opinion, if you can communicate cinematically something convincing, it basically accepted by most of the audience. That's the real challenge today. And another challenge is image making. Because billions and millions, billions of images are flowing all over in the ether world. And everybody is taking images. So when you make film, the director and the cinematographer, they have to keep in mind that you create some amazing image which is not seen by people every day. That is very, very important. At least for me, even when I made Parikrama, I thought how to sort of blend the images, its tonal quality, its movement, something normally a common man can't do. Because, why we go to cinema, it is very interesting. Why we go? To get thrilled? To spend time? To listen to a story? No. We go to cinema to witness time, encapsulated time. That is the most important thing. So many things have changed, as you said, from celluloid to digital. But this element of cinema, this power of cinema, the time factor, cinematic time, has not changed. You see, you can make a film, a 2 hours film on the 2000 years of Roman history in 2 hours. You can make a 2 hours film on a 2 hour story, Race Kanchenjunga. You can make a incident of 10 minutes in 5 hours. So we can squeeze and expand time. That factor, I'm sure, will remain. So cinema will exist, but I don't know how, in which form, but it's a great challenge. For me, every film is a challenge. That you challenge to depict your ideas, your content, your narrative, and also how you depict your perspective, your understanding of everything together, because one shot has all kinds of things, images, sound, ambient sound, the performance of the characters, everything together. You cannot separate. It's not that, that's why he said, when Tapan Sinha made Jyotugriho, it was not Uttam Kumar's solo film, it was Tapan Sinha's film. Because all the elements together, it's very, very important how you combine these elements. That's very important. And the tuning, it's like also an orchestra. If one violin goes out of tune, it's gone. Again, you have to record it. In cinema also, each and element has to be tuned properly. If the tuning is good, you deliver a good cinema to your audience. So audience will not listen to a bad notes, a wrong note. If you can give the right note, and audience, unknowingly know what is right sa. Sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa. When you come back to the tonic, audience unknowingly understand that expression.
Good. I think with that we conclude. Well, here, Gautam, you're giving great hope. Because
last year, that slogan is fantastic. Cinema is hope.
So, yeah. That's why last year we walked. Tagline was, last year, you remember, our tagline was cinema is hope. So we're in that. And now, we all conclude. It was a wonderful time. I wish, because I think, I tell you, people are going through to see the other cinemas and all that. But we have the video. We have recorded everything, and we'll definitely see whatever you said is been already in the camera, and also with the sound and everything, and what your clippings are. So
your sort of festival has a fantastic archive.
Yeah, we have, and then we will definitely show to the people that even though you miss actual live thing, but you will get the whole thing, because this was very inspiring. And I'm telling you, Swapan, you're really wonderful, and he has such a, analysis of each and every film, and also the history kind of a thing, connection to Hindi cinema, other cinema was very perfect and into perfect word, because analysis can be drab, but analysis can be also very emotional. That was you did. So thank you very much for that. And also Goutam, Tapan Babu belonged to maybe two generations before. One generation. Okay. Take it, one generation. But the way you had that kind of respect for a man who we call Raj Kapoor as Raj Kapoor's ideas, but with the mainstream cinema. And I think Tapan Babu also, the mainstream cinema. And see,
you from Mera Naam Joker, you just, I think, Raj Kapoor's family should try, take out the first episode, first part, and show a separate film. It will be absolutely on an international standard.
Yeah.
First part, you remember? It was super.
But this is the comment by whom? Manikda. Yes, the same comment came from Manikda. He told Raj Kapoor that your first part is something which can be wonderful of international. World class. The young Rishi Kapoor and Simi Garewal. That part is a complete film, and that's what he said. Anyhow, on this we conclude. Sir, Swapan, this is with love.
Thank you.
Goutam da, this is with love. And you have been, I'm very, very happy because, you know, he's handling the whole Kolkata Film Festival. You can't imagine unless you go to Kolkata Festival, how vast the whole thing, I don't know how he manages.
How he manages this lovely, wonderful festival. Absolutely.
This is kind of a...
and your colleagues are super, I must say.
Thank you.
What is missing in this world today is gentleness. Gentleness is missing. So what I have found here.
Good. It is a compliment to you, Vishal, and your colleague Aditi, and all the people who are working for the Pune International Film Festival. It was a very unusual topic today. You know, we talked about a man whom they're totally unaware. Even people with a little bit older generation, they don't know. But today you came to know what Tapan Babu is? Tell me. Take the hands up or whatever it is. Great. That's a great gift to both of you, to our young audience. And of course, we have video. We'll definitely show to the people. Thank you very much, Goutam.